And we are live. Sunday Night with Those Guys, and Sunday Night with Those Guys is sponsored by Those Guys.
Evening, everybody. What's up? Welcome to Sunday Nights with Those Guys.
What's going on, man?
Tonight, going to be a real good live stream. We have Jim's droning. Who else was here? Jody was here earlier, and whoever, Robert Glazier. Good evening to you guys. Good morning to you, Stephen, over in Taiwan.
Good morning, good evening to you, Herman and Lawrence. How are you?
It's evening for us here.
Yeah, good morning.
Early afternoon for Tom in where he is, and actually morning for you. And Bob Casey, how are you, man? What's up? How's everybody's weekend so far?
Well,
Tom, you're muted for some reason.
it's the weekend. All I remember is the day ends in DAY. That's all I know.
Well, yeah, that
Retirement's
happens
kicking in, man.
when you're retired. It doesn't. Every day's a weekend when you're retired, right?
I had to put one of those old fangled calendars up on the kitchen wall just to remind myself.
Do you know what day it is?
Yeah, I'm
Drone
scratching
ball.
it like a prison cell.
Damn goods. What's up, Spanks?
Well, you know what, Tom? You got means you got to find stuff to do.
Oh, we got stuff to do. We just loaded up the RV. We just got back. Tomorrow morning, we're leaving for Palm Springs, California.
Okay.
We'll
Nice.
take the RV down there for 5 days. I'll venture across the countryside, wreaking havoc with my drone, and see if I can stay out of the crosshairs of the law enforcement, and I'll be good. Okay.
Okay. All right.
One can only hope.
No problem.
What's up with you, Herman, or Stephen?
Well, I'm just here doing my thing. You know, I mean, you know me. I got something. Well, I need your help with some things because there's a couple of videos that I'm working on.
Okay, all right. We'll plan it out. I can come up there this week.
Something fell in my lap, you know, the other day that I gotta just
Okay.
Not out of the back of the truck.
No.
Okay.
No.
Just checking.
No,
Just checking.
No.
Because if you don't cut me in, man, I'm gonna rat you out. Okay.
I said, cut me in or I'm cutting it out.
That's right.
I hope that list on Netflix was enough and enough variety for you as well, because
Yeah. Thank you for the list, and just to just want to say to everyone out there, thank you. Thank you for the support. I've been getting messages and calls and invites to shows, and to keep me sane when I'm here, and I really appreciate it. It just really shows that we do have a community, and it's worldwide, and we are together, and I absolutely appreciate it, and really from the bottom of my lonely heart at the moment, I really thank you all. It's been a long 7 days. I'm now halfway through. It's the 8th day.
click that like button, guys.
I'm
Yeah,
having my
halfway there,
morning.
man.
I'm just
I
having my
understand.
morning coffee, and it's.
Has it gotten any better than morning coffee, or?
Oh yeah.
I make I make an order. I make an Uber Eats order to Starbucks.
Good.
Get some coffee and some scones and some stuff.
I hope there's an expense account tied to this. Okay.
It's quite cheap here, so thankfully it's okay. But it's going well. It's going well.
Listen,
I'm glad it's getting through.
Tonight we're going to do things a little different because we have a guest coming on. Ryan Latourette. Let me pull up the page just to make sure that I have it here. Ryan Latourette. That's how you pronounce it, Ryan Latourette. I'll put the link here. I was posting for his for their free funder page that they have. If you remember, we were talking about it Wednesday that they had just won a case in Ottawa County. He's coming on to discuss what part of that case he can discuss, but also to help bring funding, to help try and get some funding for their cause. the courts are appealing it. He's going to discuss all of that when he comes on in about 11 minutes or so. Making about a quarter after. But that will be most of the show. I don't think he can stay the whole time, but I want to be able to hear what he's doing, and he also let us know that New Jersey is next in line. They just sent letters to New Jersey to start a legislature about making it illegal for local municipalities and or counties to predict who flies over their airspace, when, where, and how, when that's the FAA's job.
Right,
And
that is the
shortly
number
after
one
that,
cause. Right?
hopefully if New Jersey accepts it, he says New York is next in line. So things are going to turn out pretty good. I look forward to talking with Ryan. If you remember the last time he was on here, Herman, he was dealing with another case.
Yes, we were talking with
So,
the gentleman in Louisiana. It was
yeah,
dealing with the issues that are flying over, aerial trespassing, flying over his neighbor's property who had just happened to be a
but police
deputy.
officer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
happened to be a deputy. And a gentleman that he was supposedly friends with at some point, and
that was
went
a
south.
story. I don't know if you remember that or heard us talking about it, Stephen, but he was dealing with a gentleman who when he got the drone, it was okay. He said he would take off from his backyard and then go out over the field. And one or two times he may have passed over a small part of his neighbor's yard who happened to be a town deputy. And it supposedly he was looking, hey, Lake Pilot, looking at his wife, or he didn't want him hovering over his property. And they came and confiscated his drone and locked him up for some time, and he went to court and everything about it. It was a pretty big thing, at least happening in the United States, because it was one of the few cases. Hey, Roger, Canadian Drone Hope. It was one of the cases
He's actually appealing it.
Had just now hit the news, because we were hearing about stuff like this, but this one actually made news, and Ryan Latourette actually went down there and helped advocate for him. They started a GoFundMe, and I believe he won that case.
A good attorney and everything.
Right, they had attorneys come to represent him. No one from the FAA came. Everyone went down. These are other drone enthusiasts and or advocates for drone pilots. So it should make for an interesting conversation. You guys click that like button. There's too many of you in the chat there to be 3 likes. Yeah, I'm real raunchy today. Got to get it any way we can. But anyway, what are you doing now, Stephen? To past it, I have noticed the beard is starting to smoothen out and fill in.
Yeah, I've not been shaving. Have been showering, obviously, but I haven't been shaving. I've still got bad jet lag. I've been awake since 2 o'clock this morning, and I think that this lack of being able to go outside and exercise, just walk, and it's still affecting me. So my sleep is not good. I went to sleep last night at 9 o'clock, and I was just so tired. And then I woke up at 2. So I've been awake since 2 o'clock. So and that's kind of been how it's been all week. I've not had a good, decent night's sleep, let's say, and I'm here until the end of February. So it's a bit tough, so I need to, and we start work next Monday. We start work next Monday. That's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long day. Then we do work into nights as well. So it's going to be night work from Tuesday up until Friday. It's going to be night work all kind of working until about 3, 4 in the morning or something, So I have to get my sleep, and it's just impossible.
Completely upside down by this point. Yeah. The end of this.
But I think this is the good thing in a sense, where I don't have beer or I don't have wine, because if you add that into the mix and stuff, it can maybe screw it up a little bit. So
the imagination opens up.
Yeah. So I'm feeling okay. I'm actually doing okay. I'm always saying that things could be a lot worse, but
absolutely. Be thankful.
All right. Well, you're a strong person. You'll make it through. It's nothing. I mean, there are a lot worse things in life you could be doing right now. So that's how you have to look at it. You understand what I'm
Right.
saying? You could be outside in Antarctica holding a flag waiting for a truck to come by. You know,
Or
it's
from what I
any
hear, in
number
New
of
York
things.
City, it's the same
Yeah,
temperature in Antarctica, right?
yeah, yeah. It's the weather's been a little funky here in New York. It's been a little chilly, but they claim Wednesday it's going to go up to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which to
Mhm.
me is a heat wave in the winter. I'm ready to go out flying in 40-degree weather.
What's
So
Thursday
let's
look
hope
like?
that it hits. What'd you say, Herman?
What's Thursday look like?
Thursday is supposed to be in the upper 30s. It's not going to break the 40s, upper 30s, and at night, I think a low of about 15 or something like that. I can actually check right now, but I want to go flying this week. We can catch some twilight shots or something like you had mentioned before,
Hmm.
and that would be cool. I would like to do that anyway. Travels with Rosie, how are you? Right now it says, okay, Wednesday night rain, Thursday partly cloudy, 36, a low of 18. In the afternoon it's supposed to be sunny though, so we might want to get, if you want to get some twilight shots, we might be able to pull that off. That'll work definitely. But
Okay.
anyway, like I said,
I'll talk to you about something because
all right.
I got something I have to do.
If Mike says I cannot do it being isolated like that, I'd go insane. Well, he's not alone. He's got the internet. Now, if there was no phone or no media,
Hmm.
then the walls would be different colors when they open the door. You know, it would probably they probably never quarantine anyone 14 days like that again.
We got a we got a nice surprise last night. Actually, I was having a meeting with my team. We were just sitting down, just starting to plan the work and stuff.
Right.
And there was four of us in the meeting, and one of the guys, the doorbell went, and the doorbell goes if you've got food, right? That's the only
Right.
reason why the doorbell goes. But we had already had dinner, so there was no reason for the doorbell to go, and nobody had ordered anything. But his doorbell went, and
Right.
then another doorbell went, and he came back, and we had a big thing of bubble tea, and we had a big bag of snacks, right? And we all
Okay.
and it had our room numbers on it. And then I had one, and then the other guy had one, and we were sitting there going,
Nice.
"What the hell is this?" And then we got a message from the customer saying that the government had sent us I don't know, a kind of snack pack to cheer us
Okay.
up, which was quite nice.
Like a care package.
But like a care package, yeah. So
Okay,
which
that was
was quite
nice.
nice.
That's
So
nice of the customer.
Somebody's thinking about
Okay.
you.
Is any of it sugar?
there was and there was bubble tea. So it's like I don't know if you know
I
bubble
know
tea.
those little gelatinous things. Hey
Yes.
guys,
Yeah.
here's Ryan. Hold on a second. Give me a second to bring him in. It's
Oh,
5:13 at 2 minutes early, on time. He's on his way in. Hold
Hello,
on, his
Ryan.
audio connecting now. Ryan, you can hear us fine.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
hear
we
you
can.
fine, Ryan.
All right.
Thank
Good
you.
morning, Ryan. Good morning.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am
Yeah.
good. How are you all?
Well, we're
We're
good.
good.
Man, we're good. I'm glad to have you come on because you're always a man of interest that I always want to keep in touch. So when you had sent me that little free crowdfunding on Messenger, I was like, wow, dude was already ahead of me. He was thinking about. I saw you post it, and literally seconds afterwards, and I was clicking like on it. You sent it to me on Messenger, and I'm like, all right, that's what's up.
Great minds think alike, right?
Yes, yes. How much time do you have with us tonight? And this way we can know how to pace ourselves or
Right.
get straight to the gun or what.
I can give you about 45 to an hour. How's that?
Shit, I'll take it.
All right.
I'll definitely take it. All right. But if you
Okay.
want to introduce yourself to everyone out there, Stephen from the
Right.
Flyby Guys is in Taiwan. It's morning. He's over there working. Tom, has been on the panel with us. Herman. If you can kind of introduce yourself and let people know what you do, because I titled the
Absolutely.
live stream "Drone Pilots Advocate," which is
There you
pretty
go.
much what you are. So if you
That's a
can
good
take it from
good way
there,
to
that
phrase it. Yeah, so my name is Ryan Latourette, and I am the Director of Regulatory Affairs for the Great Lakes Drone Company, and have been doing advocacy for drones for, gosh, as long as I've been flying drones, which has been quite a while, 2012, 2013, someplace in there. And so I'm always looking for ways to advance the operators' rights, to make sure that operators' rights aren't trampled, and to bring new folks into the hobby and ultimately the commercial market area for the industry. I think the thing that we're talking about today, though, is drone preemption, and drone preemption it's only available in certain states. Now, drone preemption overall, we know that the FAA has the sole jurisdiction over airspace. So I'm going to take and put that aside for a moment. What we're talking about in this case is drone preemption of land use. So the launching, landing, operating from within a boundary. And in this case, it's states. So there are 17 states in the United States that have passed a drone preemption clause. Michigan was one of the first, and that preemption clause specifically states that no local government can create or enforce their own drone ordinance. So they're specifically denied from being able to even put on the books, you can't fly here, right? They're specifically denied from having an ordinance where they can enforce it, where they can go say, hey, our law says you can't fly in this location. Michigan's been advanced in that respect because they looked at it and said, the FAA really does not want this patchwork quilt of all these regulations. And so Michigan said, we can do this by passing a state law that preempts everybody else. Right. Now, where our trouble is, we have some places, some local governments that have decided, oh, we don't care what the state says, or we don't know what the state says, so we're going to pass our own ordinance anyway. Right. And in this case, Ottawa County did so.
Can you just explain, when you say our own ordinance, can you give an example, like similar to like what the one that they're doing in Ottawa County?
Yep. So in Ottawa County, the ordinance basically says you cannot fly in any county park without a permit, without permission, without insurance. They expanded that this past summer to say that you could not fly within 500 feet of any county facility, whether it was a jail, the courthouse, the county headquarters. And they went so far as to say you could not photograph anybody, any person that was part of the county government, or any security features of those county buildings, so security cameras, etc. What happened, right? Because we have the Michigan preemption clause in place, we took them to court and said, hey, wait a minute, you cannot pass these types of ordinances. They're illegal by state law. You need to get rid of them. And the judge agreed. The judge said, that's correct. Our reading of the material from the state of Michigan, the legislature signed by the governor, says you cannot have these types of ordinances, and threw out the ordinance that Ottawa County had put into place, right? The challenge, Ottawa County said, we don't agree with that decision. We are going to appeal. So we are back into the court system again. We're going to have a legal appeal of this, but here's the significance, right? And this is great, because right now we've had these fights before in court. Genesee County was one where an operator got arrested. He got thrown into the back end of a police car. And that case also, we got an injunction against the county where they threw out the ordinance. Genesee County backed away and they said, okay, we accept that. We're good.
I remember that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we spoke about it.
we've been doing this county by county or local government by local government. But now that we get to an appeal level, what happens is the decision at the appeal level becomes a statewide precedent. So no longer do you have a county over here that says, well, I can do this, even though county over here has been enjoined. It doesn't matter. Once you get that statewide precedent at the Court of Appeals level, then no counties, no local governments, it's all off the books.
Well,
so
the
that's
local
why
legal
this is such a
counsel,
huge
Right.
case.
right? The local legal counsel now has established, case law.
Correct. Yep.
So, I mean, the significance here goes a lot farther, Ryan, where as drone flyers, operators, pilots, however you want to refer to yourself, as a man pilot, imagine having to fly across the country and deal with local jurisdictions along the way.
Yep.
A flight, a flight from LA to New York wouldn't cost $600. It would cost $6,000, okay, for economy coach. To navigate that is just insanity. So, by establishing case law here, okay, you'd set that precedent. And now it's hard for those local jurisdictions because they have their own legal counsel. Their local counsel is going to say, sorry, there's already case law in place, right?
Yeah.
I got a question for you, Ryan. Whose idea? What was that, Herman?
No, because I wanted to ask Ryan, is like when the courts already told them that they can't bring such things before the court, how do they now appeal it to say that
There's
we
an
want to
appeal
bring
process.
forth something that was already thrown out by the courts and said you can't do it?
Well, yeah. So the appeal process in terms of an injunction is much the same as it is with a criminal court, right? So, if you were convicted of murder, right, you would say, "Oh, wait a minute, I didn't murder the person. Maybe there's new evidence I'm going to bring forward. Maybe they're going to say one of the witnesses lied." In this case, I think Ottawa County is going to try to pick on some of the things that they believe are the facts in the case, which are not true. I think one of the things that they've held, if we looked at their briefs, they were talking about the Cosby versus US case, right? And if you aren't aware of that one, Cosby, back in the 1940s, he owned a chicken farm. And that chicken farm happened to be right where the US government wanted to build a bomber base, right? Well, the US government decided, no, we're not going to buy this chicken farm. We're going to buy the property next to it, and we're just going to build our runway and fly our bombers over. Well, bombers were flying 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sometimes as low as 83 feet over the guy's property. Chickens were dying. They weren't getting sleep. If the wife's not getting any sleep, the husband's not, right? So they said, okay, we got to take this to court. And in that case, the lawyer was very smart. He said, hey, we are going to look at the takings clause of the Constitution, that you decided you didn't want to purchase this farm, but you are inherently using the property for your own purposes anyway. And the takings clause, think of this as eminent domain, right? So if your local government decides, hey, we want to build a park where your house is right now, they can't just build a park there. They have to come in, use eminent domain, and buy your property. Well, the U.S. government decided they didn't want to do that, and the judge went, you would have to have done that in this case. Now, what that did is opposite what Ottawa County thinks, because until that case came into place, it was always held legally that a homeowner owned everything of their property from hell up to heaven, as high as you wanted to go. And the court said, wait a minute, we can't have that be in place any longer, because what if Delta is flying over, American Airlines, hot air balloons? They looked at it and said, we are in an age where we cannot have every property owner up to the sky. Instead, we are making airspace public domain. So when they did
doesn't
that,
it come down to quiet enjoyment of the property? I mean, that's
yes, there's that clause in there. They didn't specify a height, right?
Right.
But they did have that clause to say at least a homeowner can use up to a certain amount. They didn't give that certain amount as for their enjoyment. where that leaves us is that in this case, Ottawa County is reading that incorrectly to believe that anyone flying a drone over their property is trespassing on their property and causing a takings. Now, wait a minute.
Against
Think
the
about
Fifth
this.
Amendment, right?
Yeah, so think about the
Fifth
takings.
Amendment,
Can you take your neighbor's property? You can't, right? Because you're not the government. Only the government has the right to eminent domain. If you are on your neighbor's property, you're trespassing. If you're above your neighbor's property, you don't have any takings clause. You may be trying to trespass, right? And that still has to be determined at what height level you would be trespassing. But the takings clause is a challenge. And so that's where we think Ottawa County is trying to appeal on that grounds, and they're going to lose.
Yeah, that's baseless. Yeah.
No,
I think
Go ahead.
I think this is really, I just want to commend you for the work that you're doing right now, Ryan, because I think it's very, very important. You're obviously busy at the moment, but I do think that in the next 6 months to a year to 5 years, you're going to have to hire more staff, because I think that what you're doing and why it needs to be done, and for the importance of the community, whether it be professional and obviously the hobby as well, because I think that the two, we need to have the two, because without the professional, we don't have the hobby. Without the hobby, we wouldn't have the professional. People come from the hobby into the professional side, So I do think it's important. What is your background? Are you an aviation lawyer or what?
I get to ask that a lot. No, I'm not a lawyer at all. I'm an English major. Go figure.
Okay.
No, as I got into flying drones, pretty much immediately I looked at it and said, no one knows the regulations for drones. That's a huge problem, whether that's flyers, right? The novice flyer coming into it, they have no idea that you need to request airspace authorization, right? Or it was local residents who would say, hey, you can't fly that here. Or the big one was, it was elected officials who said, I don't think that that's allowed, or it shouldn't be allowed, and I'm going to do something about it. So when I saw that happening very early on, I said, I've really got to get deep down into these regulations, understand them, and try to do something about it. And so that's where this grew out of, started into advocating or lobbying, doing a lot of letters to officials, talking with folks, and putting on shows or going to presentations and lectures and just educating folks, getting them
In
into
fact,
the
Ryan, I think we first met at the National Press Photographers Association get together at the School of Journalism.
Yes.
Yeah, where I had mentioned on this stream before, where and I was representing public safety there, but we were fully aligned with the press on this, to allow us to coexist in the airspace, right? We're asking the FAA to coexist in the airspace, okay? But then we push back on regulation that, hey, don't identify me. I want to fly anonymously, all of this. And in a perfect world, maybe that would happen. This is not a perfect world, and we got to fit in, okay? We got to fit in for the safety. And the scary part is, and I've said this numerous times, the FAA has been around for 63 years. I know that because we're the same age. And they have kept our airspace safe for those 63 years. I don't think individual jurisdictions would have been able to accomplish that same task, okay? So that's why I think this is so important. We can't go from one township to another township, to a village, to an urban area, and expect to know everything there is to know, okay? But unfortunately, in this country, as well as many others, ignorance is no defense. So the best way to tackle this is to make sure the states, okay, or have that umbrella where only the state can petition the government to deal with airspace issues. We can't have these local jurisdictions trumping that.
Is the impact, let's say the possible impact financially on these states, if they stop, people from flying. So, or let's say that if people have to apply for permits and stuff like that, that really makes life difficult for businesses. So if you have a drone business, if you want to go and do an inspection, if you want to go and do some filming or whatever it is that you do with your drone company, that really makes life so much more difficult.
Yeah, direct impact on commerce.
In terms of flying, which has which as far as I'm concerned, has an impact on let's say society. Because obviously each county, each state looks after each other, and they want they want businesses to grow. So that really that's making life difficult. So I don't understand why they want to make life difficult. I do understand that they are ignorant to technology, knowing that things like these, that your basic DJI drones have got, let's say, in a sense, they don't have the best cameras. So they're not as good as people think. People do tend to think that you're looking right into people's homes and you can see.
We're looking through walls, Stephen. We're up in the sky at 100 feet looking through rooftops.
Yeah, I know.
Okay?
I know.
That's the perception people have.
But it's just the old thing that what we do, but what people think is completely different. It's just completely polar in a sense. So, I mean, are you working with the FAA? Do you have contact with the FAA? What's your, what's any connection you have there in order to, let's say, work with them, or are they working with you? Are you working on an advisory basis or what?
Yeah. So, I think Tom, mentioned that we were at the convention together at the what is it? Yeah,
New York School of Journalism.
School of Journalism, NYU, and we were right there arm in arm with the FAA.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that we are constantly involved with them. I sit on panels with them as we go to these discussions. I have one of the FSDOs on my speed dial in case, hey, we need to talk. And I want to go back to that challenge that you were proposing of, this makes it difficult on business. I see it in two different ways, right? Yes, I do believe it is incredibly difficult on business if we're going to have individual ordinances. And part of that, what I see a lot of times is insurance, right? Where they will say, you need to have $1 million of insurance in order to fly, as well as a permit. Well, okay, what if my company, I only insure everything at $500,000? Well, now I got to go out and get a rider as well. And my limited time, I might not be able to do that, or I only get it for a day, right? Maybe I'm going to have an event and that event gets rained out. Well, I just lost all that rider money picking up an insurance policy to fly when I don't even need it. I think the other challenge, right, is that when you get into a permit system, you have to have an intelligent body to know, is it okay to fly here? So they could be issuing a permit when there's a TFR in place.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
Right. Or in Ottawa's county, this was one of the interesting things they said in court. They said we would allow somebody to come into the parks and fly. And they gave an example. We could have somebody fly at a wedding and we would permit them to fly over people, whereas somebody coming in just willy-nilly would be illegal flying over people. And we kind of scratched our heads and we're like, you don't even know what you're talking about because you can't fly over people.
So basically someone can come in there with the non-prop guarded drone and fly over people and get away with it.
Well, Lawrence, this is why the FAA is in lockstep with Ryan, okay, and others of us, even in the public safety world. The public safety realm feels the same way about this. Remember that, like from where I came, the New York City Fire Department, we provide mutual aid to surrounding counties. Now, we would not be able to do that if each individual jurisdiction was able to set their own laws in this regard. Not only that, a group like New York City Fire Department or Metro Dade Miami or Florida or LA have what's called incident management teams and USAR teams, urban search and rescue teams. In fact, the COA that I helped write for New York City was a continental US COA, where we basically are allowed to fly anywhere in the United States when called upon. Now, if you have these individual laws in place, that wouldn't be possible. And that puts the public at risk. Now, one of the things I want to bring up, Brian, is the fact that there's a lot going on behind the scenes in these local jurisdictions. And some of it comes from special interest. Okay. Now, I'm going to cite something in New York City. Okay. New York City should be doing facade inspections using drones. Okay. And public safety supports that. But the Carpenters Union does not, because the Carpenters Union controls scaffolding in New York City.
Right.
And that is lucrative. So these are some of the uphill fights that have to be fought across a wide range of these. I mean, but what should happen first is go after the state at the top level, get them to set those preemption laws, so that now you're only fighting 50 instead of 50,000, right?
Brian,
exactly.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mhm.
You've been doing this drone pilot. I say drone pilot / FPV advocation for a while. I titled it Drone Pilot Advocates, but with all the cases that you've been dealing with, how many cases have you come up against? How many cases have you won? How many cases are pending? If you can answer that question without getting in trouble, you must understand.
Yep.
I understand as well. From what I've seen and from when I've met you, you got to realize it's 2022. You may not remember this, but we've met maybe about 2.5+ years ago, and you were getting advocating for people. What is the record for drone application, if that makes sense?
I'm winning a lot, which is good.
I want to hear. No, that's
So
what I want to hear, honestly.
yeah, so we talked about the case in Genesee County of the drone pilot getting arrested. We won that case, right? And that was we were able to get the injunction. Down in Louisiana, we had Mr. James Benson, who got arrested for flying over his neighbor's property, and the neighbor happened to be a police officer. That one is currently awaiting appeal, and I think that one is going to be a slam dunk, a win. Down in Nashville, Tennessee, gosh, the name's escaping me now, but he was flying during some of the BLM protests.
Yes, I remember.
And he was arrested for trespassing with his drone, even though he was flying over his own building, right? Kind of interesting. Those charges were dropped. So we got that through. I've been on just a ton of cases, and I can't think of anyone that we've lost yet. There's been one case in Florida where the individual decided that he was going to accept a plea deal, even though the attorneys that we were working with said, don't do that, pass on that one.
Right.
But most everything has been really positive. And we've shifted cases over to the FAA as well. There's been a case down in Southwest Michigan where an individual was using a laser and pointing that at the drone. And that individual called the police and said, hey, this is against federal law. You need to do something about it. What did the police officer do? Cited the drone operator and said, well, you can't be flying here. And so we ended up getting that tossed out for the drone operator. But I think the piece there that was nice is that the FAA got the information of, hey, here's the individual with the laser. We have a screenshot of him pointing at the drone with the laser. So some of those things, really have elevated the drone community, right? Where we can say we're protecting aircraft. We're not just out here looking at properties. We're actually finding problems and forwarding them onto the FAA and saying this is a challenge. Go do something about it.
Well, laser pointed at a drone that's 300 feet away versus who's to say that Delta flight's not at 1,800 feet okay, coming into an airport. The problem
Well,
pointing lasers at anything airborne is
Mhm.
against federal law.
I
Right.
just
You know,
wanted to say,
Right.
law enforcement is ignorant to a lot of this as well. So, you know, education is key here. Education is really at the crux of this, to try to get these,
what were you going to
these
say,
entities
Herman?
to realize what this is all about.
Well, basically something similar to what Tom is saying, but it's basically what I've looked at with all of it is, you know, ignorance is trying to see how ignorant the other side is on the subject. So it's the same old law enforcement game. You know, I'm gonna play ignorant, and I'm gonna use my enforcement ability against you to see how ignorant you are about the subject, and that's how all of these cases come about.
Yeah, but you know
Yeah.
what really bothers me, like on the gentleman that was arrested down south for flying his drone over his neighbor's property because his neighbor happened to be a Leo.
Well,
What happens is you win the case, okay?
Mhm.
But a bunch of us have contributed, okay, to paying for that case. And not only that, this individual is in the system now, okay?
Right.
So this is something you can't forget. When you are arrested, you are in the system forever. You will come up on any NCIC draw out of the database. It doesn't matter whether you were completely innocent and all charges dropped later. You were already processed,
Yep.
okay? And this is what we have to fight against. You
Well,
want
I
to
just
you
want-
want to get it before it happens, and that means not only do you have to, you know, these local lawyers that are involved, they're handed a chore and a paycheck. Come up with reasons why this argument is valid. Okay, we have to do the same thing on our side, but that takes money,
I have
and
a
that's why.
really good.
Look, we posted in the chat already. Go up there, even if it's only $5. Just drop something into the
Well,
hat,
Ryan,
because
the
it's
reason
us
I
that are
had
being
asked
protected
you-
here.
the reason I had asked you, Ryan, what was the percentage is because I kind of already knew that, being that I do kind of try to keep up with the stories and stuff, but
Lawrence is trying to say we're backing a good
the
horse.
show, it's more of a reason to show to support the cause that you have here now on Free Funder that I just posted. And
Yeah,
and for
makes a
those of
difference.
you who came in a little late, Ryan Latourette, and I had your name, man, is my nemesis or something. Because even if I'm saying it right, it still sounds like I'm not saying
Listen, Ryan, feel fortunate. This is probably the only name he's gotten right. Okay.
I have muffed quite a few, but if you can give a brief synopsis of what the causes you're doing now and on this free crowdfunding and how every little dime helps, because you're doing things across the United States. And I wanted to ask you this one question that I don't think anyone has asked you since you've been interviewed doing this kind of stuff. And that question is, how does it feel to be actually writing history? Because you're writing history on as far as drone laws, you're writing history is in the drone community altogether. How does it feel when you go home at night and you say, yeah, another notch in the belt? And then you hear the Western song playing in the background, you know, the whistle. How does it feel?
There you go. So well, let me answer the first part
Okay.
in terms of the crowdfunding. So when we put this thing together, we understood that in terms of the Court of Appeals, that's no cheap entity, right? So we are going to have some filings. There's got to be a massive amount of research that we have to do, legal research, in order to get all the existing case laws so we can put together some really comprehensive briefs, because we know this is it. This is our chance for that statewide preemption. We blow this, we have a statewide preemption the other way. So it is absolutely critical that we get that done, and we know that's going to take funds. So that's what we're asking for. I think we put $25,000 as our target goal.
Yeah.
I suspect we aren't going to need all that for the Court of Appeals, but we're going to need a good chunk of that. Anything that's left over, we know, and you know, we're talking about it here, there's been so many other cases that we've had to get involvement with. And it's going to be a legal defense fund for those types of cases as well, so that when we get somebody that calls in and says, hey, I just got harassed by this law enforcement officer. I got this ticket. Great. We can go ahead and take on that battle as it is, wherever that might be, whether that's Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, New York, down south, wherever it might be. So that's why it's key. And each little contribution helps, whether it's $5, $10, $20, those things all add up.
Yeah.
I know I've already put in quite a bit of money to this.
I wanted to point that out. I wanted to point that out because I remember one of your first cases where the gentleman had got arrested and everything, and you started out with I think, don't quote me, a GoFundMe of about $4,000 to about $7,000, and I think you surpassed that,
right,
which showed how strong the drone community is as far as supporting each other and drone advocation. And I put this link in a few groups, and I put before the link, the free crowdfunding, coming to a town near you.
Yep,
because
absolutely.
It's that simple. Look, we have places here in New York, out in Long Island, that at one time they're willing to let you pay for a permit to fly in their town. But then when you get to the park to go fly in a town, a police officer shows up and says, you don't have permission to fly here. You don't live in this town. And there's little things like this that need to be wiped to the side. And Stephen, you're not from the United States. What do you think about all of this going on here and having each state have legislature written to stop this nonsense?
Well, I was just actually going to say that this sounds quite similar to what's happening in the UK. So I hear a lot from drone pilots in the UK, or not really drone, but drone companies who have to apply for permission to fly in a certain area, and these local councils actually they don't know. So I think it's kind of the opposite, where you have those states in the US where they just go, yes, you can fly, and thank you, that's that's going to cost you $500, and they give someone permission to fly somewhere where they actually shouldn't be flying, or it has to be. But the opposite is that in the UK they actually don't know. There's many council areas that have no clue. So when someone has got a job to do within 24 hours and they phone up and they're like, sorry, no, again, that makes life difficult for the companies, and it puts a dent on the finances. Whereas I live in Finland. That's my home, and so we're part of the EU. So we're part of EASA. Whereas it's very clear. it's very, very clear. So even before that, all the flight permissions would go through one entity in Finland. So we would have our government entity that we would have. And it doesn't matter if you live in the north of Finland or the south of Finland, right. It would go through one entity, and there would be a group of people, and they would know. And then all those permissions go out to other organizations, and I'm part of one of those organizations, and we look and we judge and we say yes, okay, or this is fine, or maybe this is not okay. So it's very, very clear. So so I can see how difficult this is. I mean, I'm listening to this going, this is absolutely crazy. This is. So I think what and maybe something Ryan and other people within the community, with help from the FAA, there needs to be a body where it doesn't matter if you're on the West Coast or the East Coast or wherever, that all those permissions need to go through one channel, and then it kind of almost spreads out a little bit. So it sounds insane, because I mean, if I was if I had a drone company in the US, I don't know what I would do, but from my point of view, I know what I can do. I know what I can fly. I know, I can have one person that I can call, in Finland, and I know that I can get things done immediately. But that's going through the proper channels and stuff, But it's really insane. It's so I think you've got a really, really tough job, Ryan. I really do. But at the same degree, I think that the drone, I think the professional community, as well as the hobby, because again, I do think that they're, you know, they both need each other. I think that it's like a really tough uphill battle you have there. Everyone's got there, you know, and I don't think that the press help, because you have the negativity within the press. So, you know, drones are seen as a negative thing. So I think it's easy for these states to go, you know, we don't need these things because they're bad, without actually knowing, you know, let's say the benefits or actually what they can do for good.
Yeah, you know, I do see its pockets, right? I think if we look at the press, there are some press folks out there that say, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to report on a drone near Gatwick Airport, right? Oh, yeah, there's not a drone near Gatwick Airport, but we're going to, you know, hype this up because it sells, right? But at the same time, I do think that there are press that are very interested in drones, that one, they use them. I think the other one is, you know, search and rescue. Boy, there, you know, anytime somebody is found with a drone, hey, that's a first. We're going to get that on the, you know, network news. And so that helps our cause. I think where you were talking about the idea of, you know, folks being a permit and not knowing, we got a couple examples right there in New York, right? An individual went out to fly at a state park, and the state park person said, you can't fly here. Oh, no problem. I will not fly here. I'm going to go across the street and outside the park boundaries, and then I will fly. Cop followed him out, said, you can't fly here. Yes, I can. I'm on public land. I'm not in the park. I can fly over. You do not have jurisdiction over airspace. Sorry, I'm going to write you a ticket. So he wrote them a ticket, right? And in that ticket, he also said, I am banning you from the parks for an entire year. Now,
wow,
does that officer have that ability to do so?
At least he thought he did.
No. He thinks he did. You know, we did FOIA requests that said, do you have an ability to do this at all? No. Right. That same person goes down to New York City and he flies at the UN. He's requested by the UN, by a particular client, to fly at the UN. Now, there's the aviation ordinance in New York City. And of course, you know, New York does not want you to fly there. And some police there are okay with it. Some police are, no, you can't fly here. Yeah. So the police come onto UN property. Uh-oh. That is not country. New York City anymore, that's right? You're in a different country, basically. Right. And they said, you can't fly here. And the UN said, get out of our property. Now, what's this guy going to do? You know, I have a contract. I need to fly. It's for a particular government. I'm not in New York City, but you know, the moment I leave these gates, I'm in trouble, right? So he has to leave his equipment there, right? Sneak out a back way, and then come back the next day to fly. But it's that idea that there are some police officers that you cannot do this no matter what, and I'm going to make up my own thing if I have to really enforce that. And we got to get to a point where we're not just fighting that, but we're in front of it to say, you know, here are the actual regulations. Here's what you can do. Yeah. Here's how you need to go about it. And if you can't do it in that way, then you need to step back. You need to step away.
Right. Well, you know, getting a ticket issued by law enforcement for doing something you're legally right to do is a door opener. Okay, that now allows you to contest that violation. Okay, and get it across, because here's what happens: law enforcement is ignorant to a great deal of the laws until something happens where it gets highlighted, and then it gets put in front of them. Okay. And you know, it's like being a doctor to some degree. You got to stay abreast of the latest techniques to save your patients. Well, unfortunately, in law enforcement, police officers can go through life for 20 years without getting updated on changes in the law. And only at roll call sometimes will you find out that something isn't the way you thought it was.
You
But
know,
more
that's
often
true.
than not, it's usually when the
right, Tom.
supervisor arrives on scene and says, no, you can't do that. So two recommendations I would make coming from that world are, first off, always be respectful.
Mhm,
Take the violation,
mhm,
ask for a supervisor.
mhm.
Okay.
What were you gonna say, Herman?
Well, I was say Tom is right, but the whole thing, not to bust on the police officer or not, but the police officer is only going to do what he's told to do. And a police officer in that sense, what he's talking about, ask for a supervisor. The only reason why the supervisor now comes and excuses the situation is because now he knows that he is not dealing with ignorance. They use ignorance versus ignorance. I said this earlier. That's how they all do enforce law. That's how people get arrested. You understand?
It can be.
They use ignorance versus ignorance. And and they tell you something, if you cower and just go away, then it sets precedence.
Let me share with you one of the things that happened just in Illinois this past month, right? Is that we had an individual there who wanted to fight one of the drone ordinances. Illinois is one of the states, just like Michigan, that has a preemption clause, says you cannot create your own drone ordinance. Cook County, which is the second largest populous county in the United States, 6 million people in that county, decided that they would have an ordinance. So this gentleman goes down to the park there, and he flies, and he's told I don't think you can fly here by the officer. And he says, well, please issue me a ticket. And the officer says, I don't know if I can do that. Well, can you contact a supervisor? Sure. So they contact the supervisor. Supervisor says, yeah, go ahead and write him a ticket. And we were like, ding, we got you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We took that to court, issued a motion to dismiss, and it was done.
Right.
Wow.
And now
Right,
you have
because it's a
precedent set.
business, and their job is to make money.
So, again, to try to stay abreast of every law enacted by every, when you're a police officer, you're bound by federal law, state law, county law, local jurisdiction. Okay, to stay abreast of all that is a high order, and good. The majority are good law enforcement officers, and they do keep abreast of that. Okay, but not everybody is diligent in their work. Okay, so like Brian said, like I advocated, take the ticket, take the summons. Okay, because all you got to do, but you got to be smart. Don't be ignorant yourself. Know what the local drone laws are, and the other good thing to do is, if it's an area covered in Lance, make sure you file that Lance request, because that is
Get
documentation. Okay,
Fill out
you
before
had
fly,
approval
or a loft or whatever you have to get that approval. So if someone approaches you
for my federal umbrella
Look,
that said you're legally allowed to fly.
not only do I have approval on my phone, and I've had this happen to me, I've had a police officer tell me, you cannot fly here. I'm seeing this plane go over us. And I show him I have approval from before you fly. I also show him that I have flight radar 24, which shows I'm well below the 400-foot ceiling, and that the plane is passing over me at 1,700 feet and in a completely different airspace. And he actually
Well, you have
but he
telemetry
actually
on
told
your
me,
drones.
I didn't know you guys
that gets
knew.
cached. Okay, you have the telemetry on your drones that get cached.
Yep.
Make sure you have a trust certificate. If you're a 107B current,
Or at least a copy of
Okay.
it in your wallet.
if you were flying for commercial purposes and you had to have an insurance binder, additional proof. All this documentation together with that summons to the court, you're
But
going to
even-
walk out with making a difference. Okay.
But Tom, even if you're flying recreationally, I fly FPV, I fly camera drones, and people are like, yo, you fly FPV, why do you get authorization? Listen, if anyone asks me if I'm not supposed to be here, I can show them that I can. I have authorization to fly here via text. I have authorization to fly here via several apps, and I'm following the laws. And once an officer or someone of authority sees that you're doing this, they're less likely to come at you in an authoritative mode.
I carried in my bag, and it's probably still in my bag. I got to update it. I would carry pages from the New York City Police Department patrol guide. Okay. regarding certain aspects of the aggregation law and, the aggregator law and things like that. Okay. Just so I was prepared. In fact, at one event we had parks officers come up to us, and I walked right up and I was very nice with them. And I said, are you citing the aggregator ordinance? He goes, no, you can't fly in city parks. I go, no. So are you saying this particular city park we can't fly in? He goes, yeah, it's on the sign. I said, no, we checked the sign and here's a camera photo of the sign. Where is it? So we don't have any problem landing our drones and not flying here, if in fact that is the regulation in place.
Hey, Matt,
Okay? And if it is, make sure you contact supervision and have them update the sign. And they were like, oh,
Ryan.
thank you so much. We appreciate that. And they left the park. Okay.
They will never update that sign.
No, that sign was never updated. Okay. Right by Transmitter Park there. But look, I'm hoping at some point you make your way back into New York City, which I know you're a regular of, to deal with. I mean, look, I brought up the fact of, facade inspections, right? But Ryan was part of a very, very robust discussion on the press flying with public safety, okay? Because remember, when there's a public safety incident, a mass casualty incident, multi-alarm fire, okay? Drones are up to provide force protection and a safety perimeter. If somebody else launches a drone within close proximity, then public safety has to land their drones because we took an oath to do no further harm. So if we're up in the air and we can't control who else is up in the air, then we have to land. And then that takes away our ability to mitigate the incident. So the discussion Ryan was involved in, so you know this, Stephen, that the mainstream media wants to do it the right way, okay? They see the drone as a platform, as a point of view, a unique point of view that we've all come to realize and love, right? Okay. They wanted to be able to safely fly with us, adjacent to us, so that we would set up an exclusion zone at the scene of an emergency. And then the press could fly in, think of it like a hazmat incident. You have your hot zone, well, that's where we're flying. They would be able to fly in a warm zone. And then anybody else who wanted to lift their drone had to be well away from the incident, as according to FAA guidelines, you can't fly over a public safety incident, right? Okay. So that's why I just wanted to make the point here that mainstream media wants to align itself with public safety, wants to be able to use drones in commerce. Think about it, Stephen. That's commerce for them, right? So, and I went through training down at NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology. Guess who runs that organization? The Department of Commerce, okay? They want drones being used because they see the value. And of course, you're right, 100% on. There isn't never a bad news day when a drone saves somebody.
Right. Except
Okay.
for when the hobbyist is flying his.
Well, look, but when we talk about hobbyists, that's a gray area, right? How many hobbyists across this country alone have been enlisted by local law enforcement to help them find somebody or find somebody's pet?
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a gray area there.
No, you're
We
right.
all
I'm
want to
just
be
saying
protected by the same laws. And as far as I'm concerned, airspace should be governed by that federal entity, not by local jurisdiction.
I agree 100%. Now, my question is, Ryan, now that you've been doing all of this and you have 16 states, and hopefully you mentioned to me that New Jersey will be state number 17 to have legislative law written to prevent counties and municipalities from making it illegal to fly drones to certain places. You did mention that we will be right behind New Jersey. How do you go about, how does a state go about, how do you go about making a state here in the United States eligible for these laws?
Well, yeah. So in terms of New Jersey is one of the states, just like Michigan, they have preemption. The challenge with New Jersey is right now they have a number of cities that have local drone ordinances. So I've already crafted the notes. They are going out to those cities to say, you need to cut those off, and we'll look for a response from them to see if they are amenable to that or if they are going to fight. If they want to fight, we're going to bring it to them, right? Because we want to make sure that those ordinances get knocked off. In terms of other states passing preemption, I know Colorado right now, they are trying to get something to go through. There's some big names out there that are working that process. But the way I look at it is when we go to New Jersey is the road to New York, is what I'm saying. Is that if we can get to New Jersey and get those local ordinances to be trounced, right, then we have an ability to go to the state of New York and say, look, this preemption is for you, because then we don't have to deal with the renegotiation of the avigation ordinance in New York City. We don't have to go to all these other little townships and pick them off one by one. You, as the state, get that whole power, right? And I think that's a very sellable idea, especially in New York, where, you know, you got to admit some of these legislatures, they want that power, right? And there's some other arguments that we can provide that help along that path. But it will take a group grassroots effort. So we'll organize, we'll ask people, hey, can you be a part of this? Do you want to be a part of this? It's going to be a matter of having case law that they can share, scenarios that have come up in other states. Here's why you need this, and then be able to present that to legislatures, to be able to go to your particular assembly person and say, here's what we need, and can you provide this? Here's the language that you can use.
That's why I was asking. That's why I was asking you that particular part, because when you mentioned that you were trying to get other states, I told you 2.5 years ago, New York is ready. If you have to come directly to me or anyone here, please let us know how we can. What's Herman?
No, because I was gonna say it's funny we having this conversation here today, because I remember about 3 years or so ago we were having this same conversation, and guys were complaining that that we had no one in our speaking in our behalf, because this is like I was saying with Tom, every drone pilot out there, like this guy that goes into Best Buy, he buys a drone, he wants to fly a drone, he likes drones, he does but he does things the right way. He's classed into the same group as that jerk that just wants to, that's a peeping Tom, and every time he puts that drone up in there, he's doing something wrong, and we've always said that there's no one that's advocating for this community. And then here it is, a few months later, we had that one story that came up, I think it was Michigan, and when the incident that happened. And this is like, what, your third time here with us?
Something so like that, yeah.
So it's like, I said, you know what? Thank you for what you're doing, because you are that guy that we were always talking about.
I agree with that.
Who's gonna pick this up and run with it for this community? And we were all like, well, we don't know, like where would it come from? So
Herman, I think your statement
before, and I thank you, and like you, when you come to New York, you got troops on the ground right here.
There you go.
Right.
And Herman, I think your statement goes into Lawrence's earlier question, right? Is how do you like it, or what do you see it in terms of history? And I'm a big Hamilton fan, right? I haven't seen it out in New York City. I gotta come do that yet. But it's that idea that history has its eyes on you, right? And I don't look at that as history has its eyes on me necessarily. I think it's all of us. Right. So when you're contributing to a defense fund, you're writing history, right? You are making the drone industry, because it didn't exist, and we're still in that birth stage. So when you are being a part, whether it's your grassroots organization, you're going out to demonstrate for kids to get them into the hobby, you're passing the Part 107 to become a certified operator. all those things are starting to build this history that folks 100 years from now are going to come back and look at and say, wow, the plane that I'm flying in now that doesn't have a pilot, that all came out of these small aircraft and being able to fly in whatever airspace by following the certain rules and mashing forward. Yeah.
I've always said,
Go ahead, Stephen.
I've always said that, what we are doing now for the industry, we are, laying the foundations for the future. And I've always maintained that. But what we do now in the next 20, 30 years, people will not look back at us and say all those guys there, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in the US, whether you're in the UK or whatever, they made it happen.
Ryan,
I don't think that we will be remembered in a sense that, but we are fighting, we are making, we're trying to, I'm not an advocate as much as you are, Ryan. I work in the industry, I work heavily in this industry. This is my, this is my day job, this is my 9 to 5 job or 9 to 9 job or whatever you want to call it. But I still believe that we, whether you are our hobbyist or not, you should have the right to fly. But obviously within within the rules, of course, as well. One question I have for you, and I think it's an important question, is the work that you're doing right now is obviously extremely important, but what are you looking more ahead to finding a solution, let's say nationally within the US, to make sure that you're not doing this, going from county to county, state to state, running around, that there would be a centralized way to manage flight permissions? Is this something that's on your horizon, or are you just too busy?
Yeah, no, I do think that's coming. So when you look at this crowdforce funding, right, we are looking at building this defense fund, not just because this is a case that's coming before the court. We understand the precedent this sets. So if we set this precedent at Michigan, we are then going to be able to go to those 16 other states, and any local ordinance there, we can say, hey, we've got case law here in Michigan based on the same type of language that you have in your state. Do you really want to start fighting us? Because here it is. You've got the court already ruling this. Yes, it's in another state, but do you want to place your bet that you're in the okay? And then I think that translates as well to those states like New York that doesn't yet have the preemption clause. They get to see that in place and say, we need this, we want this, and we understand it, and we can build that idea for them, because at some point as well, this changes into not just Michigan coalition of drone operators, but a U.S. coalition of drone operators, right?
Which is what we want it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
So
Ryan,
there's future thought to it. There's certainly a pathway to it. We just got to get there, and it's building blocks. And Ottawa County is that next building block.
Case law is currency in the courts. Okay.
Yes.
If you don't believe that, any liability lawyer, any accident lawyer out there hears cha-ching, cha-ching when they come across case law. Okay.
Right. But
because case law is the foundation to the next decision made. Okay. And that's why it's so important to get these precedents set so that we have a foundation to hit these other states with.
Okay. I unfortunately have to wrap this up because I'd like to keep Ryan to his word, as he gave us an hour, which was more than I thought you were going to give us. But I know you have a social life, and I have to say we appreciate you coming.
We know Ryan. It's okay. He
have
let
to
us
keep
go.
in correspondence with me or Herman or whomever else you have to here in New York. I want to keep knowing what's going on with New Jersey, because to hear that we're next in line, my mouth is watering. I want to know what it takes to get legislator legislature here in New York, as well as the other 16 states across the United
Absolutely.
States.
And I will be back. We'll talk again. I'll share what we have in terms of things coming out of New Jersey. And then
Yeah,
my
please do.
last
Please
pitch,
do that.
$5, $10. It doesn't have to be much.
Whatever it is.
All those little pieces add up, and that's going to
Right.
be huge to get this precedent
And you're
win.
helping write drone history.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right.
Ryan, you know,
Right
like I
now-
said,
Huh?
get finished, Lawrence.
No, I'm
No, I was
saying
good.
right now Ryan's batting 1,000 in as far as winning these cases, and it's all because of donations and stuff like that, as well as the drone community in general. I'm sorry, Herman. Go ahead.
No, I was like I said to Ryan before. I said, when you have troops on the ground here in New York, and when it comes to those guys, Wednesday night or Sunday night, you have a open invitation to come on and to speak on any case that's that you have to talk about, anything in the community that's going on. If whenever you're ready, you come here. You can talk about it.
Much
got me.
appreciated.
We're friends on
We
Facebook.
got troops on the ground here.
Get me on Messenger. If every now and then I have to send you a message, say, yo, what's up? I'll do it. I have no problem. All in the name of advocacy for drone/FPV pilots. And
Excellent.
thank you for coming on, man. We appreciate you ever so much.
Indeed. Thank you. I will see you
Thank
later
you.
and fight the good fight.
Thank
Uh-huh.
you.
Ryan,
We're
All
here.
right, we'll see ya.
appreciate the discussion.
Yeah, keep taping up those gloves and swinging, man.
Sounds good. We'll see you.
All right. Thank you.
Hey. That I enjoyed very, very much. We always appreciate Ryan when he comes on. We learn a lot
So
when he
just
comes
so you
on.
guys know, Ryan's as genuine as you just saw him right now.
From day one. He has
I've
not
met-
changed from day one, Tom. You're right
I
about
met
that.
Ryan. We've had some good discussions, and he's a solid individual, and glad to have him as our advocate. He did not think he was going to be an activist advocate, but he took it out of necessity, right?
Right. When he first
And that's
started, he
appreciated.
admitted that he never thought he would be this much into the advocacy for drone pilot
Right.
drone/FPV pilots. Have to put that in there. I mean, this gentleman is
You don't have to make the
across
distinction
the
every time
states.
between drones and FPVs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same
Drone
thing.
is drone.
At the end of the day,
Yeah, when they come
Okay.
for you, they're coming for us all.
yeah. I'm pointing you out first, okay? I'm not going to yell helicopter. I'm going to yell Lawrence.
Anyway, I just wanted to say we want to try and bring more people on in the future like this, as opposed to just doing interviews. A lot of people I'd like to say thank you to who support our channel. They support everyone's on this panel's channel.
Bob Casey, exactly.
their
United
Facebook
We Drone.
pages and stuff. But if you can come to this live stream and just pick up
Yeah,
one
that's right, Bob.
that you didn't know. What's that, Herman?
Bob
You
hit
know,
right
what
on the head.
Bob said.
United We Drone.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's it. And even though it's morning time and Steven seems to be running out of coffee, I'm just messing with him.
I've got one sachet left.
All right, so now you need to let us know. Now that we're gonna we still have a little bit of time. We actually have. Here, you guys know about the story. Herman did not know about it, but I have to press this button before I go into this story. I hope you guys read it, because this is definitely.
Retard alert! Retard alert, class!
And what I mean by retard alert, okay, Energy Safe Victoria,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is an energy company calling all Victorians to keep their drones and cranes clear of power lines. I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to tell the story anyway, because it's not funny, it's serious, and people don't know the severity of it. Victorians to keep drones and cranes clear of their power lines. On Wednesday, January 5th of this year, 9:30 p.m., there was two gentlemen in their 40s that were flying a Phantom. It looks like a Phantom, not Phantom, an Inspire 1 or an Inspire 2. It doesn't matter what the hell it was, but it was an Inspire series near some 66,000 volt power lines at Brim Park. To make a long story short, the gentleman went home and came back later with a flatbed truck and
Because you got it stuck up in the power
with a
lines.
cherry picker, on a flatbed truck. And
Yeah.
I have to play this again
Uh-oh,
because
retard
I
alert.
cannot say it
Retard
enough.
alert, class.
This is not what you do. First of all, you don't fly near high power lines. Second of all, he came back with a flatbed truck with a cherry picker on it and asked an innocent bystander or onlooker to raise him up to pull his Inspire drone from the power lines. Now, whether they were 5 volts or 66,000 volts, if your drone was stuck up there, the proper thing would have been to call the local authority who owns those lines and let them know you have a drone stuck up there. To make a long story short, this gentleman that knew nothing about operating a cherry picker and or electrical lines, Herman is an electrician. To make a long story short, the guy got up there, the crane touched the line or got too close enough to the line. I don't know the exact story.
He contacted
he got fried.
He contacted the
He
high
got
voltage.
fried and is on critical. The gentleman
Yeah,
who was
he had upper
operating
body,
the cherry picker on
significant
the
upper body
ground,
burns.
because he was on the ground and also touching the equipment, he also
He
got
grounded out,
burned
and
to his
he had
leg.
lower extremity burns. Yeah.
Right. So now my problem with this is, guys, don't try and do anything like
Well,
that.
idiots will be
It's-
idiots. So I
It-
over my several decade career in public safety, I attended a multitude of IAFC conferences, International Association of Fire Chiefs, and at almost every conference, the local power authority gave a demonstration where they lifted up a ballistic dummy and had it contact the high voltage lines. Herman
Yeah.
will agree with me that what everybody got to see, besides the loud bang and big flash, it ripped that ballistic dummy more times than not in pieces.
Right.
And several times, just from the electrical energy, the ballistic dummy was decapitated. Okay? So
Well,
to put, first off, if your drone survived touching the power lines, that's great. It wasn't grounded out. That's wonderful. Contact the power company because they need to retrieve the drone to
listen, as
safeguard the power lines, but also to get it back on terra firma. Okay.
true, because Herman's the
And,
electrician.
but there's two. When you read that story, I couldn't stop shaking my head, Lawrence, because first off, I come back, okay, with a cherry picker,
Mhm.
but then I enlist some passerby to operate the cherry picker.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. There's probably 15 warning stickers all over that cherry picker that probably says to be operated by trained professionals. Okay. So
Yeah.
now we got idiot made the first mistake of flying his drone into the power lines.
Mhm.
Okay. Second mistake was probably not even his cherry picker. He probably borrowed
But
it.
it don't matter now.
So
That's probably after that high voltage arc, Lawrence. I'm
Yeah.
probably sure that every conductor on that truck is welded together at this point.
well, Tom,
Okay.
Well, I usually don't. Go ahead, Herman.
OSHA used the words competent person.
Competent
So-
personnel.
Right. So
We know that wasn't the case.
right. So when you have a situation like I'm just picturing what from, because Lawrence didn't send me the story. I'm just picturing what happened from what I'm listening to. And
Hey, Rob,
we
say-
have a meatball that got a cherry picker and had someone else enlist himself into the meatball club and
Hey, by the way, can you
drive the cherry picker into the power lines, causing the power lines to now arc where it was fine when the drone was stuck in it. Whereas
Right.
that someone who was a competent person would have had the same similar apparatus that would have brought him up there, but not drive it into the power lines.
Right.
Or he would have had enough common sense to
No,
ground
but
off.
you got to
before
use. I mean, you better have lineman gloves on. You better have a hot stick. You better.
Yeah,
You better.
all
You
of the
better.
above.
All of those things above. But if you look at the injuries, and people have to realize this, the guy in the cherry picker
Mhm.
had significant upper torso burns.
Yes.
He
The guy on
ground
the
it out.
ground
He
burned
became
his
the
rope.
conduit. Then it left his body because he was probably leaning against the cherry picker, entered the frame of the cherry picker, went down to the operator platform, and the operator, aka passerby just helping out, now had significant lower torso burns.
Oh, honestly,
Okay.
Tom,
Okay.
if you'd like to actually draw it up on a piece of paper, what actually happened.
I mean, it's like it just got, first of all,
I think the guy in the
casual
cherry picker was
passerby
only a
pointed
branch.
out.
I think he was only a branch circuit.
I tell you, unfortunately, they didn't have the right size circuit breaker to go off at the time.
Well, listen,
There was no
we
circuit breaker.
No.
we usually do stories on here, drones for good, but we have to also point out the stupidity that's done and make it known to people, this kind of stuff. I've seen people do all kinds of things to
What's up,
retrieve
big
their
man?
drones, and this is just one of them. As a bystander, I would have had to say, dude, you got to find someone else to do that, because I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not messing around. And
Well, for one,
the chat, hold on. What Robert Glazier says, with that many volts at 66,000 volts, the arc can jump several feet.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is what I mean. If I'm not an electrician, but I do know around electricity and wires, those guys usually ground off somewhere. You know.
Is
He
this
would know more than I would.
is this now the right time to talk about the flyby guys doing power line inspections? Is it or not?
just don't tamper with the insulation or
Just remember who to call when it gets trapped in the lines. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we actually have a partner in Estonia. There's a software company who actually specialize in power line inspections. So they have an AI software.
Yeah.
And we are one of their partners, and we're actually we are let's say that we are promoting, or we are offering the services in the Middle East. So we will be offering these services to the energy companies in the Middle East.
Right.
So and it's all basically done through AI. So we will be flying, let's say across the lines. We have the lines, and any errors that you have there, they will be shown up, and you get a report on it.
Right.
But it's let's just say for people out there, power lines are dangerous, but they're also a means of making money as well. So
absolutely. But as Herman mentioned earlier, the term competent, personnel, right? Okay,
Right.
Makes a big difference there. You know what you're dealing with. The AI software helps you to mitigate risk when dealing with that, and you make a profit by mitigating risk. You never make a profit by running into risk head first. It gets too costly.
What?
That stuff you got to litigate, and you're going to come up on the wrong side of it.
Yeah.
You know what, Tom? There's always been a running joke about that in construction, because I know we've always had to worry about guys getting hung up on power on any kind of circuit. So we've always had, it's always good to keep wood around, because that's the key to freeing that person from that circuit.
Yep.
A piece of wood.
I had said,
and you never get to pick the guy you work with. I remember I was working with this one guy, and I told him, I said, you know what? I hope to God you never get hung up on a circuit in here.
Hey,
because
guys,
I'm gonna whack you every which way but loose.
Hey guys,
I made sure I outfitted every fire apparatus in New York City, Herman, has linesman gloves, rubber mats, and hot sticks on board.
Hey, listen,
right?
Really quick.
So if you don't have that gear, then you can't deal with the power line. Okay.
Hey Tom, really quick before we end the live stream, I have to put this out here. Go get breakfast. I know it's breakfast, but I have to put this out there, and I have to say this disclaimer before I do. The views and opinions tonight are not necessarily the views and opinions of everybody on the panel and or in the chat. But I'd like to point this out there. This goes to Eddie Nunez and whoever else may be lurking out there, please stop coming to the live stream and making jokes and trying to be funny. We do this live stream.
What
Good for
what
breakfast.
specifically are you pointing
we-
out?
Well, I'm going to get to that. We specifically do this live stream to show and teach people things. But when people come into the chat and say, "Oh, what about this? Why isn't this happening? Why isn't this going on?" It has nothing to do with the live stream. I don't appreciate that. I don't do this jokingly. And I'm saying I cannot go to Eddie Nunez show or Ken Dono show and do some of the stuff that he comes in here and does.
What? I'm sorry, I'm losing something. I've seen most of the
Earlier in
posts
the
that you
chat,
put up.
earlier
What are
in
we
the
talking
chat,
about here?
well, earlier in the chat, Eddie Nunez had came in and was trying to make light of the fact that nobody had blue wrenches and how
Yeah, I was
Tom,
wondering why I didn't rate one down.
and how Tom
often as
is
I
on the
did.
panel and doesn't have a blue wrench, and he kept going on and on, and I chose to ignore him. I just wanted to make it very clear. I cannot go to his live stream and do that. So I don't expect him to come here and do that.
I think that's
That's my point.
I think you're barking up the wrong tree, dude.
Well, I just want to make it very
Your
clear.
show you can, but I disagree with you.
Tom, there's no justification. The point I'm making is I don't want it to happen again. That's all. Because I can't go to someone else's live stream and act like an ass.
I didn't see him acting like an ass, dude. And you
It's
go to
just,
anybody's
I
live
just thought I
stream
would,
and
I
act any
just
way
thought
you
I would
want,
bring
but
it up.
I didn't take it that way, and I found that offensive, Lawrence.
Well,
Eddie's a stand-up guy, and Eddie's a stand-up guy and has provided tons of content.
he's a stand-up guy, but the stuff he does in this live stream, he don't dare do on his. And we're going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't agree.
We
with you.
appreciate you all. We appreciate the support. We don't do this to come here and get a bunch of laughs. At least I don't. I do this to enlighten people and show others how much of appreciation I have for drones. But if you want to come in and crack jokes and talk about irrelevant stuff, this is not the place to do it. That's my point.
There's hundreds of different side conversations going on in the chat right now. I'll leave it at that, but I'll leave you too. Have a good day.
All right. You guys got anything to say before the night's over?
Everybody, it's been a pleasure being on here, but everybody take care. Peace and love.
I'm just saying, I don't go to other people's live streams.
You already said it, Lawrence. You already put it out there, and I think it was a mistake that you did.
You guys have a great evening. We appreciate you all. Thanks for the
Everyone, you
support.
take care.
Don't forget to check out Herman's live stream on Wednesday nights and whomever else may come on. Steven, keep us posted with what's going on. Herman, I'll contact you afterwards. Tom, it was nothing personal, but I just
I was going to say,
I can only take them but so long.
What I was going to say was, I'll see you guys again on Wednesday. We'll have some more interesting topics to talk about. On Wednesday. And with that, good night, everyone.
Everybody
Right,
stay
guys,
safe.
I'm going to have my breakfast now.
Enjoy.
Yes,
Okay.
you guys have a
Good
great
morning
evening.
to you, Steven.
Appreciate you all. Thank you much. We'll see you Wednesday night, I guess.
Hey, guys. Cheers. Have a good one.
All right.